You know, when you think about the world of fine art, you probably picture these elegant galleries, maybe some priceless masterpieces hanging on the wall. But behind that beautiful, cultured surface, there's a really dark secret. The global art market, well, it's one of the last great unregulated playgrounds for financial criminals.
And don't get it twisted, we are not talking about some small-time art heist. No. This is a highly sophisticated global system. It's used to launder money, to dodge sanctions, and to hide fortunes that have been stolen. So just how big of a problem are we talking about?
$4.5 billion. That is the absolutely staggering amount of money that was siphoned from Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund in the now infamous 1MDB scandal. And what was one of the key tools for washing all that stolen cash? You guessed it, priceless works of art.
Honestly, the 1MDB case is the perfect, if not terrifying, example of how this whole thing works. The story is wild. It's got a fugitive financier, Hollywood celebrities, and, of course, some of the most famous artists in history.
So the guy at the center of all this, Joe Low, went on an art buying spree that was just unprecedented. Get this, in just 2 months, he dropped $137 million of stolen money on works by the greats, Basquiat, Rothko, Monet, you name it. For him, art wasn't just something pretty to look at. It was basically a portable, untraceable bank account. And the crazy part? The art world's so-called voluntary anti-money laundering checks, they turned out to be little more than window dressing.
But here's where the scheme gets really, really clever. Lowe didn't just buy and sell the art. Oh no. He used this technique called collateralized laundering. He took 17 of his paintings, all bought with dirty money, remember, to a legitimate financial service, pledged them as collateral, and walked away with a totally clean loan for $107 million. Just like that, the stolen money was washed, transformed into legitimate credit from a reputable bank. It's kind of genius in a criminal sort of way.
So this all brings up a really important question. Why? Why is the art market so uniquely vulnerable to these kinds of schemes? Let's peel back the layers and look at the structural flaws that criminals like Joe Low just love to exploit.
It turns out the market's biggest weaknesses are actually built right into its DNA. First off, value is totally subjective. A painting is worth whatever someone is willing to pay, which makes it super easy to inflate prices and move cash. Second, anonymity is king. Transactions are almost always done through shell companies to hide who the real owner is. And finally, art is incredibly portable, and the whole industry just has this deep, deep culture of secrecy and privacy. It all makes it the perfect vehicle for moving wealth across borders completely under the radar.
And all of this fits perfectly into that classic three-step money laundering cycle you might have heard of: placement, layering, and integration. You place the dirty money by buying the art. You integrate it back into the clean economy by selling it later on. But the most important part, the real secret sauce that hides the crime, is the middle step, the layering.
And this right here is a perfect illustration of how that layering works in the real world. A single painting's ownership can just bounce around the globe. It's purchased by a shell company in Panama, then it gets shipped and stored in a high-security warehouse in Geneva, then it's sold to a trust in the British Virgin Islands. You see, every single step creates more and more distance from the original crime, making that money trail almost impossible for anyone to follow.
Now, I just mentioned those high-security warehouses in places like Geneva. They're called Freeports, and you need to know about them because they are the physical heart of this entire shadow economy. See, Freeports operate under this sort of bizarre legal fiction. Inside one of these fortresses, a piece of art is legally considered to be in transit, meaning it never officially enters the country it's in. And that means no customs duties, no taxes, and, most importantly, no prying eyes from authorities. It's basically a legal black hole where priceless assets can just hide out for decades.
The scale here is it's hard to wrap your head around. The Geneva Freeport alone is estimated to hold over $100 billion worth of art. Entire collections are bought and sold between different shell companies without a single painting ever leaving its crate inside the warehouse.
And if you want to see just how easily this system can be abused, look no further than the case of a Basquiat painting called Hannibal. It was valued at $8 million. It was smuggled into the United States. And the customs invoice? It declared the item was a painting worth $100. That's it.
But of course, criminals are always innovating, right? They're always looking for the next frontier. So it should come as absolutely no surprise that these same old schemes are now being adapted for the digital age with NFTs. And the most common technique they use is called wash trading.
The concept is actually really simple when you break it down. You are secretly on both sides of the trade. You're buying from yourself.
So here's how it works. A criminal uses dirty crypto to buy some cheap NFT. Then, they use a second digital wallet that they also control to buy that same NFT from themselves for, let's say, $1 million. The blockchain now has a public record of a hugely profitable sale. And just like that, the original dirty crypto has been washed into what looks like a totally legitimate gain from a savvy investment.
So, for decades, the art market has basically operated in the shadows. It's been the Wild West. But after massive scandals like M1DB and the rise of digital crime, the world's regulators are finally saying enough is enough. A major global crackdown is on its way.
And the scale of this change is just massive. We are moving from a world of voluntary, reputation-based trust to one of legally enforced transparency. Anonymity is out. Identifying the ultimate beneficial owner, the UBO, the person who's really behind the transaction, is now the #1 priority.
The centerpiece of all this is the new Art Market Integrity Act in the United States, which is set to kick in around 2025. And this is a true game changer. For the very first time, it reclassifies art dealers as financial institutions. That means they're going to be treated just like banks. They will be legally required to have formal anti-money laundering programs, report suspicious activity, and, crucially, find out who is really behind every single purchase.
This really feels like the end of an era. The world's largest unregulated market is finally being forced into the light. But it leaves us with one final and really critical question. As the light of regulation finally shines on the art world, will criminals finally get caught? Or will they just find new, even darker shadows to go hide in?